Okay, welcome everybody. It is 9:30. It's Webinar Wednesday, and if you have been with us before, you know we start right on time. I'm Diane Michael with Beyond the Boardroom, and I'm honored to be here this morning with my CAM partner, Lindsay Lombardi. We will be hosting this morning's education program. Our goal is to educate board members and CAMs in an easy way at your desk, on your mobile, while you're traveling. We know how important education and continuing education credits are, and that's exactly why we decided to launch our Beyond the Boardroom program about a year ago. We started on the fourth Wednesday of each month and have already grown to now offer education and CE credits on the second and fourth Wednesdays. So please mark your calendar for the next webinar Wednesday happening on November 12th. Can you believe it? We're already talking about November. Please note the next 2 months, there will only be one webinar Wednesday each month due to the holidays that are upon us. Keep watching the emails and be sure to save us as safe senders so you don't miss important education updates. And please let your fellow board members and CAMs know about our program. The more people that attend, the more vendors we get and the more education you receive. We would love to know where everyone's coming in from this morning. If you would put your city and if you're a CAM or board member in the chat, we would love to see that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to put the agenda for the day into, well, you know what? I'll wait until everybody says where they're coming in from because that way it won't get lost. But I will add the agenda here shortly to the chat so that everyone can see what's upon us this morning. We hope that you stay for all of the courses. Also, I'm going to put in at the end of the presentation a survey. We sent out a survey a couple weeks ago where we're asking you what times are best for you, what days of week are best for you, what kind of topics are you looking for, what kind of education are you missing. Our program is really designed for CAMs and board members. So our vendors, our association allies, they ask us, what do the CAMs and the board members, what do they need? And so we, Lindsay being a CAM, she knows what the environment needs as a CAM, but we always want to gain your feedback. So please fill out the survey if you haven't. It only takes about 3 minutes. So all of that information is very good for us to have. So thank you so much. We do have 3 continuing education credits for you this morning and some other great content. Lindsay, will you please explain how the CE credits work?
I will. So everyone, we've started, for those of you that attended last webinar Wednesday, we started using a link. That link will bring you to our webpage, and on that page that you go to, I'll have lots of information about the credits, and then there's a place to click and put your information. So that's what you want to do for every course that we teach, not every day, every course. So you'll have to do it 3 times today if you stay for all 3 webinars. You'll put in your first, middle, and last name that is on your CAM license. So if you don't have a middle name, it will require you put something in that spot, but put an NA or none if it's not on your license. You'll need to put your CAM license number in there as well. Please make sure you check that to make sure that the number is correct. And then we use that information to submit to the DBPR. There will also be a code word that you have to put in as well, I believe, for each one. And I think the name of the course. So just keep that in mind to take a note that you know what the code word is and you know the name of the course. You can do it right after the course or you can wait and do all of them at the end of the day, but just make sure that you keep the note of the 2 things that you need for that. And then keep in mind that for every course, we're dealing with over 100 CAMs. So there's been some issues with a few people not getting credit. We do submit everyone's information. Unfortunately, because there's errors everywhere, right? So a number could be, switched, or maybe you put a middle name, but you don't have a middle name on your CAM license, or vice versa. You didn't think it was on there, but it is. There's things that can make it not register with the DBPR. So if you have any issue, please, make sure that you registered, obviously, and put your information, and then reach out to us and we'll check and see if there's an error on our end. If not, we'll send you a certificate and you can submit it that way. So most people are getting credit, but there are a few that haven't gotten credit. And sometimes when you're submitting, 50 to 100 people, there's a couple that just won't go through. So work with us on that. We're going to work with you on it. And hopefully, eventually, everyone's systems will accept everything that we submit when we submit it.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, without further ado, it is my honor to introduce our first presenter, someone who truly embodies experience, integrity, and leadership in the pool construction industry. John Oakes is the proud owner of Central Florida Homes and Pools in Winter Park, Florida, where he has been leading the way in both commercial and residential swimming pool construction and renovation since 2010. With decades of experience, John has built and remodeled countless pools across the state, always with a homeowner first approach. But his experience doesn't stop there. John is also a partner of the award-winning pool construction company Oak Wells Aquatics, with their headquarters located in Jacksonville. They recently expanded into franchises, and we know that we have CAMs and board members from all around the state. So if you know someone who may be interested in becoming a pool builder, John is the one to talk to. He oversees commercial pool field operations, where he serves as a qualifier, consultant, and also a relationship manager. John's career is backed by more than 30 years in construction and business leadership, from building a thriving retail furniture company in the 90s to leading large-scale projects like the $1 million DOT contract on the Highway 528 Beachline expansion. On top of that, he is a certified commercial and residential swimming pool contractor, a certified building contractor, a licensed real estate agent, and a certified CE provider for the swimming pool industry. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our trusted leader, experience builder, and someone who has dedicated his career to raising the standards of our industry, Mr. John Oakes.
Thank you, Diane. Good morning, everyone. The Oak Wells Aquatics brand is on an expansion mode. Like Diane mentioned, we did open up 3 franchise territories in Southwest Florida, and we're continuing to grow the business through the franchising. But today we want to talk about commercial swimming pools primarily. I saw that we do have some people from other states, and what I'm familiar with here is the Florida swimming pool codes, which are at probably the most stringent codes anywhere in any other state, with the exception of California. I think they make it even more complicated than we do here in Florida. But to start with, swimming pool is not a swimming pool necessarily. There's commercial swimming pools, and then there's residential swimming pools, and they're 2 completely different animals. And that's one of the topics that we really want to cover here, because CAMS would be involved with managing and overseeing commercial swimming pools. And the Florida Building Code and the Florida Health Department define a commercial swimming pool as any swimming pool that's intended to serve more than one household. So even if it's a couple of duplexes that have a common area pool, that's treated as a commercial swimming pool, and it's governed and monitored by the Florida Health Department. Can I have the next slide, please? So our objective today is to just help you understand the differences initially between residential and commercial swimming pools. The safety standards that the health department requires us to meet in commercial swimming pools are much more stringent than anything that is required in a backyard swimming pool. For starters, a commercial swimming pool cannot have pumps that draw directly from the swimming basin. So what we have to do is install and this would be during construction, we would install what's called a collection tank. And through gravity, the main drains and the gutter drains around the perimeter of the pool drain into the collection tank, and then the pump sucks water out of the collection tank, runs it through the filtration system, the sanitation system, and then back into the swimming pool. This is a safety feature which is designed to prevent swimmer entrapment. There's some terrible stories here in Florida where pools that were not maintained properly initially. And children typically are the stories that you hear about, start playing around with the main drain and get trapped by the pump suction and end up drowning. And so everything that the health department does, everything that they control is around pool safety. The biggest, most notable change in the pool code was back in 2007. I think the event happened in 2007, but a little girl named Virginia Graham Baker was entrapped in a main drain in a residential swimming pool and drowned. And from that point forward, we've really changed, the health department and building department has really changed the codes that the safety codes to try to prevent that from happening. And the first big one that we notice is the no direct suction in the collection tank on the commercial swimming pool. A residential swimming pool, on the other hand, does draw direct, the pumps do draw directly from the skimmers, which is a protected basin, but also from the main drains. And there's special main drain covers that the building department requires us to use that are anti-entrapment covers. The safety is paramount to everything that we do in the pool construction business. But I think so. Learning the distinction between commercial pools and residential pools is where we are. May I have the next slide, please? There we go. Commercial pools serve multiple households. Residential pools are designed for one. The DOH, Department of Health, regulations are very stringent. One of the other requirements that the Department of Health has for commercial swimming pools is that whoever it is that maintains that swimming pool needs to be a certified pool operator. This is a certification that's issued by the department, by the DBPR, and typical condominium association maintenance guy can become a certified pool operator with the weekend course, and I think it's available online. Next slide, please. So the picture here is an example of a commercial swimming pool that's a special use pool. It's a competition pool, and they have some different exceptions and regulations. But the reason that we've got this photograph in here is just to remind me that there's that there's different rules for competition pools. Can we move to the next slide, please? So this is an example of a typical gutter pool. Any commercial swimming pool that exceeds 1,000 square feet of water surface area has to have a gutter around it. We sort of need to zoom in to see that if you can. But you can see that the deck moves over to a piece of coping, which steps down to a 12-inch wide gutter. Anything that's 1,000 square feet or greater has to have a gutter. If it's a commercial pool, this is a perfect example of that type of pool. If we can move to the next slide, please. So this is a photograph of an old school commercial pool. And when I say old school, what I'm referring to is this curb. You'll notice that there's the front edge of the gutter on the water side of the pool. There's the front edge of the gutter. And then the gutter has to be 12 inches wide according to Florida Building Code and the Health Department. It has to have 2 inches of slope in it. And then there's a tile line at the back of the gutter. And then there's this curb. And then there's another tile line on the outside of the gutter. When we eventually get to talking about renovating these types of pools, this particular type of pool is a little more expensive when it comes to replacing tile because it has 3 full perimeters of tile. There's one at the water line, there's one at the back of the gutter, and there's one on the back of the curb. But we would typically replace all of that tile. Another interesting point that we could see on that file is that the Florida Department of Health, DOH, considers the first 4 feet of deck from the water line or the back of the curb out as the wet deck. And there's some very specific requirements that have to be met in the construction or maintenance of that wet deck. The biggest one that we see violations is that slope of the deck has to be between 2 and 4% sloping away from the swimming pool. In this picture, the curb kind of solves the problem for us, but what they're trying to prevent happening is from rainwater or splash water that accumulates on the deck. We don't want that running back into the swimming pool because it makes it very, very difficult to maintain sanitation in the pool circulation system. Can we go to the next one, please? This is actually a residential pool, but it's an example of a skimmer pool. You'll notice that there's no gutter around the perimeter of the pool. And up in the top right hand, just off center, you'll see the little round spot next to that black canister, and that's the skimmer. If this were a commercial skimmer pool, it would require an additional skimmer. This pool's only 450 square feet of surface area. It only takes 1 skimmer as a residential pool. But the number of skimmers that's required in a commercial pool is based on the volume of the swimming pool. And that's not something that we would address in a renovation or maintenance. So we can move on. Next slide, please. So we've covered the collection tank is specifically to prevent entrapment. The way that this hydraulic system on a commercial pool typically works is the water would, through gravity, flow through the gutters the drains in the gutters or the skimmers, flows through gravity into the collection tank, and it also flows from the main drain into the collection tank. So when the pump is off, the water level in the swimming pool and in the collection tank reach equilibrium. They're the same elevation. So if you're working with a pool contractor that's doing a renovation on a commercial swimming pool and you're replacing a collection tank, which is sometimes included in the vac pack system, it's critical that the elevation of that collection tank be set at the same elevation as the swimming pool deck. We had a situation down in South Florida where an HOA had an equipment area that was constantly flooding. And we replaced their backpack system, which is their pump pack system, as part of the renovation. And they were demanding that we set this higher so that it doesn't flood. And that's not an option. These two, the elevation of the pool deck and the pool water dictates where the tank has to be set. So we had to look at that a little differently. The reason that was flooding had nothing to do with the swimming pool. It had to do with the big clubhouse that had 3 downspouts all draining into the pool equipment area. And when we addressed that, we were able to lift the tank 4 additional inches, but redirecting the stormwater drainage is what solved that problem. Next slide, please. So we're moving into the sanitation system, which in the commercial pool business or the commercial pool construction, the Florida Department of Health will allow us to install a salt chlorination system, which are very, very popular with residential pools. It makes the water better for your skin. It doesn't smell like chlorine. It's actually less expensive to maintain in a residential pool. The problem with the salt chlorination system on a commercial pool is it cannot be the primary sanitation system. The health department says you still have to have a backup system, which would be chemicals, chlorine and acid. So in introducing the chemicals to the pool, there's several different ways that we can do that. Manual dosing is sort of the old school. This is where your certified pool operator shows up with jugs of chlorine or chlorine tablets, and bottles of acid, and he'll test the water and make adjustments according to the results of his test. Manual dosing has to be done 3 hours before the pool can open for swimmers. So it's not really a very realistic way to maintain your water chemistry. The second method would be with chemical pumps. There's two prevalent names on chemical pumps. One of them, name brands, one of them Stenner pumps, which is the one that we prefer. There's another company called Roller Chem that does the same, has a similar product. And these are metering pumps. So there'll be a tank of chlorine, liquid chlorine, and the Stenner pump will draw chlorine out of the tank and inject it into the plumbing system near the equipment. And then there will be a similar pump and acid tank that is set up to inject into the system. With manual maintenance, the certified pool operator would test his chemicals. He would look and see what the chemical balances are. If he needs to add or reduce the amount of chlorine or acid that's going into the pool, the Stenner pumps and the Roller Chem pumps are adjustable, so he can notch them up, ratchet them up to provide more or less chemicals to try to reach that ideal balance. In today's world of technology, of course, we have what's called an ORP controller. And this is a system that has a computerized analysis. It comes with a collection bowl that has sensors in it. And as long as the pump is running, water's running through this collection bowl and being constantly tested by the ORP controller. The lower end ORP controllers, for example, like the CAT 2000 model, just has a readout, and it'll tell you what your chemical balances are, and you can set these parameters, and it will adjust the rate that the Stenner pumps pump chlorine or acid into the pool to reach those parameters that you've programmed in. The CAT 4000 is an upgraded version of the CAT 2000. The primary difference there is that it has a Wi-Fi connection and it has a memory, and it will constantly monitor the chemicals, make the adjustments just like the CAT 2000 does, but it also records your chemical balances, and it will, for anybody that has the app for that particular pool, it will notify you of chemical deficiencies or any kind of problems. Anytime that the water chemistry moves out of the parameters that have been programmed in, it will ping your cell phone or your service guy's cell phone, or all of the above. And we really recommend a CAT 4000 because that helps you with less effort and less chemicals, helps you accurately maintain the water chemistry, but it also provides you with a historical record of what your chemical balances have been. And the reason that this is important is because when a swimming pool is refinished, the warranty that comes from the manufacturer and the installer is contingent upon keeping the water chemistry balanced. And with an ORP controller, for example, the CAT 4000 that's got the memory in it, it will provide that record for you if there's ever a problem with your finish. Or if you have an offsite service provider that's taking care of your pool and you start seeing algae grow in the pool, or you start seeing black algae or other problems, or you start seeing calcium buildup in the way of, we call that scale. Those are all indications that your water chemistry is out. What's the best indication that your water chemistry is out is to be able to look at this historical record and see what kind of a job you're really having done. Next slide, please. Let me back up for just a second. So an ORP controller the code has recently changed. An ORP controller is required on all new construction swimming pools, and has been required for as long as I've been in the business. An ORP controller of some sort has been required on spas or hot tubs. Just recently, new construction swimming pools require an ORP controller. And if you have your swimming pool renovated, a commercial swimming pool that is already in existence and has had an operating permit that has not been allowed to expire, you do not have to add an ORP controller, although it's a great idea. It will make your water chemistry management more cost effective and with less effort. So some of the other safety requirements that we run into that are not kept up are the fencing requirement. There's very specific requirements for that fence. The ones that come to mind are: it must be 4 feet high with no horizontal members that could be used as a step to climb in. So for example, this little example of the picket fence that we've got on the screen at the moment would not meet pool safety code because of the horizontal members. The second parameter that we have to look at: there can be no opening that is wide enough to allow a 4-inch diameter sphere to pass through it. That would be between the pickets, between the closed gate and the fence, or below the horizontal rung in the fence. So the horizontal rung can be there, but you have to have a 4 foot wide gap, a 4 foot high area where there is no horizontal member to use as a step. The next requirement is that any gates need to swing out away from the pool. And the idea of that is that in the event that a small child gets up to the gate and is trying to get into this pretty swimming pool, which is absolutely attractive to them, if the gate swings in and it's not latched and the child just leans on it, the gate will swing open and the child can enter. With an outswinging gate, it requires much more physical ability for the child to get in, because they'll have to walk up to the gate, grab the gate, pull the gate backwards, walk backwards, and then get in. So this is the way our health department strategizes to create the most safe environment for the swimming pools we can. The final requirement on the gates is that there's two actually. It must be self-closing and self-latching, and the release for the latch on the gate must be 54 inches above ground. So that's just, all of those parameters are just about safety in the fence. So you can see what I mean by we have a pretty comprehensive safety code. So on each commercial swimming pool that's managed by the Florida Department of Health, manages the wrong word, monitored by the Florida Department of Health, it will tell you on the permit whether or not it's allowable, it's open for night swimming. And if you have night swimming, there's lighting requirements that have to be met. One of them is the lights inside of your pool can only be white. We've got these really cool programmable color LED lights, but the health department says that if you're going to have night swimming, you can't have colored lights. The other requirement for night swimming would be that you have to have a light survey done, and you have to have, and I don't know what the exact parameter is, but you have to have a certain number of candle power everywhere on the pool deck. Another story about why we have these rules. There was a condominium association here in Florida that did not have a pool that was approved for night swimming. It was the 4th of July weekend. 4th of July fell on Saturday, and the board had a discussion. They had a party around the pool deck, and they decided that they would keep the pool open until midnight instead of closing the pool at dusk like their permit says they're supposed to do. Unfortunately, one of their owners had been drinking. That happens, and dove into the pool, and she broke her neck. And this was a terrible, terrible situation because the pool was not authorized for nighttime swimming. This happened after dark. The board had made the decision to allow the pool to be open after hours, not really considering the potential consequences. And there was a lawsuit that exceeded the liability policies of my understanding is it exceeded the liabilities of the insurance that the HOA carried by several $1 million. And it's just, I mean, that permit issued by the Department of Health is a rule that absolutely needs to be followed. Next slide, please. So renovation, this is probably the most valuable contribution that I've got to make to your pool maintenance regime. When you are going to renovate a commercial swimming pool, refinishing the pool triggers all Florida health codes to be brought up to today's code. So if you've got any features or any grandfathered in features on your swimming pool that you haven't had to bring up to the current code, when you refinish that swimming pool, they all have to be brought up to code, with the exception of installing an ORP controller. Some of the items that we see that are commonly grandfathered in are the cross brace ladder. I think we have a picture coming up on that. Can I see the next slide, please? So this is an example of a ladder that is not cross braced. The cross brace will be on the next page, but if you can envision two little boys, probably 8 years old, getting rambunctious in the swimming pool, and they discover that it's really cool for one kid to put his feet against the wall and grab the rungs of this ladder and do a little leg press. He can pull it out far enough for his buddy to swim behind it. That's really cool, but it gets boring. And what happens next is when he's swimming under there, the little kid doing the leg press lets go of it and catches his buddy. And it's funny because he's trapped until you realize he's trapped underwater. And there was at least one drowning from this, and that's when the code changed. Can you give me the next slide, please? And these are two examples. You'll notice that horizontal member on each of these ladders. It runs right across the top of that curb. That prevents that rambunctious activity that I described a few minutes ago. So if you're if you're refinishing the swimming pool and you have ladders that are not cross braced, you have to install cross braced ladders. When you're installing those ladders, the first rung of that ladder has to be at or below the water level. And the distance between the top rung of the ladder and the waterline tile, which is at the front edge of that gutter, has to be 6 inches or less. All of those codes were to address the problem of the little boys swimming behind the ladder. Other items that need to be brought up to date at a refinish is that all of the tile that could be used, that any part of it could be used as a step, has to be non-skid tile. So in looking at these photographs, there's the waterline tile, which is actually under the water out on the pool side of the curb. That has to be a non-skid tile. And on this particular pool, because the tile comes up to the top of that curb, the top ledge of that could also be considered a step. So that row of tile needs to be non-skid. And then on the back of the curb, that 3/4 of an inch of tile that's exposed on the top can also be used as a step. So where we used to be able to use pretty mosaic tiles along there, if your tile line comes all the way up to the top of that curb, so it's a mud cap tile, it has to be all non-skid. While we're at it, if you're doing a renovation and the tiles being replaced, the marker tiles are something that the health department monitors very closely. They have to be within 3 inches of actual depth in front of them. So you can reach out a couple of feet, run a tape measure down, and if it says that it's 8 feet deep there, or if the tape measure says that it's 8 feet deep, it can be 8 feet 3, or it can be whatever that is, 7 feet 9, I guess. But it has to be within those parameters to meet the Florida Health Code, and the health department does take a look at that. Another interesting note here is that those tiles on the top of that curb have to be a non-skid tile. The numbers have to be at least 4 inches tall, and they have to have a white or a contrasting color difference between the number and the background. Let's see. Can we move to the next slide, please? Handrails. If you're redoing your deck, you're changing the elevation of the deck if you're doing a paver overlay. And there is a code that says that that handrail, where it falls into the bottom step of the pool and where it comes off of the deck, needs to be between 28 and 40 inches high. So if you were close, let's say you were at 28 inches and then you did an 1.5 inch paver overlay on your pool deck, if you don't adjust the handrail, you're going to fail your health inspection. Next slide, please. Oh, I jumped ahead. We've already done the marker tiles. So these gutter drains, this is a good picture. You can see the water line. So there's the darker blue down in the right-hand corner. That's just the deeper water in the pool. The first row of tile there is water line tile, and the water, when it's at the right depth, at the right level in the swimming pool, just slips over the top of that tile and runs to the back of the gutter. One of the other things in a renovation that you need to be sure that happens is that when the tile guy resets the tile, you need to be sure that he's aware that he needs to have 2 inches of slope from the water line tile back to that drain grate. So when you put water in the swimming pool, the water should be just slipping over that front edge tile, and it should be 2 inches deep at the back of the gutter where that drain is. And the health department does in fact measure that after a renovation to be sure that you've gotten that slope right. And if you didn't get that slope right, it's a catastrophic rework. Next slide, please. Main drains. So the Virginia Graham-Baker Act is where all of the main drain rules got fortified. The main drain grate has to meet the Florida Virginia Graham-Baker Act. There is a flow rate that is established by the manufacturer of the grate, and it's stamped on the edge of the grate. Of course, you can't see it here, but when you have it in your hand, if you've taken it out, you can see it on one of the edges. There's also a date stamped onto that main drain grate, and the manufacturer specifies what the usable life of that main drain grate is. It's normally 7 years, but not always. It varies a little bit from one manufacturer to the next. And the health department doesn't actually go swimming to check that for you, but what they do have is they require anytime a main drain grate is replaced, you have to fill out a special form that tells them the manufacturer, the model number, and the manufacturer date, which then they do the math and figure out that grate's good for 7 years, and they'll give you a notification on your inspection that you need to replace your main drain grate. When we refinish a commercial swimming pool, we always put a new main drain grate in it, new frame and grate actually. But that would be something when you're reviewing proposals from a swimming pool contractor that may be refinishing your pool, be sure that they include that. Those grates are several $100s, and they charge, I don't know, $100 or $150, something like that, to install them. And your pool will not get open by the health department after its renovation unless you've got all that information documented on their forms. Next slide, please. Black algae. So black algae is a very common problem. If you are experiencing black algae in your commercial swimming pool, there's two things that allow black algae to grow. The first one is bad water chemistry. The second one is that it's not being brushed properly. Part of the scope of work that a pool service company should include would be to brush the pool at least once a week. And of course, we know we want to try to keep the water chemistry within the parameters established by the health department. If you have a leak in your swimming pool and you have an autofill and you have a common water meter for all of your units, you probably don't know that you are losing water out of your swimming pool. The way to check that would be to turn off the autofill and monitor the water level for a few days. Typically, on a pool that doesn't have water features, you can expect up to 1/4 of an inch of water evaporation per day. If you find that you're getting more than that, you probably have a leak, and it would be worth your money to have a leak detection company come out and locate and hopefully repair that leak. If the leak is more substantial than of a project than the leak detection company is willing to take, then you would need to contact a licensed pool contractor to address that leak. And let me tell you how this chain of events can work. So let's pretend like you've got a swimming pool and you've got a leak and you have an autofill that hides the leak because it's constantly filling the pool back up. You have a common meter on your condominium association water line, so you don't really notice, if you've got 100 units all using water off of that meter, you're probably not going to notice what's added or subtracted by a leaking swimming pool. But what you will discover is that it's next to impossible to keep the water chemistry balanced properly. So that little leak turns into additional water expense, of course, but it turns into using a tremendous amount of additional chemicals, chlorine and acid. And because you can't keep it balanced, the interior finish of the swimming pool may be attacked by algae or black algae, or it may be begin to deteriorate from the bad water chemistry. So that leak that you probably could have had found for maybe $1,200 or $1,400 and let's say repaired for $1,000 may cost you, depending on the size of the swimming pool, a whole refinish job, which can be tens of thousands of dollars. So it's not a very complicated test. Turn the autofill off if you have one and monitor how much water you lose. If you're losing more than 1/4 of an inch of water a day, you've got a leak someplace, and you should really make the effort to chase that down to prevent further damage to your pool and its finishes. Emergency shutoff knowledge. So every pool pump runs on electricity in Florida, which means that there's a breaker supplying power to that to that pump. And a lot of times in some of the older pools, they have this pillbox like bomb shelter equipment room that's below grade. You have to go through concrete steps into a concrete box, and it's creepy in there. But there's an electrical panel in there, and it should be labeled as a pool circulation pump. And just tripping that breaker will turn your pool pump off if you ever need to do that. Next slide, please. Are we already to exam questions? Yes, we are. So,
you know
Lindsay,
what? I'm sorry to interrupt, John, but we do have a number of questions, and I want to make sure that those get addressed before we go into the questions. And if you have already responded, please forgive me. I'm working on making sure everyone's questions get in. One of the questions is, I don't know if it's on your list to talk about, but can you please discuss the requirements for night swimming in regards to lighting?
So the requirements for light swimming are specified in the Florida Building Code. I don't know them off the top of my head, but if you have a swimming pool that is not authorized or permitted for night swimming and you would like to move to that, um, you can reach out to me after this and I will tell you what the code is. But the two things that you'll have to do, there'll have to be a certain number of lights in your swimming pool producing a certain amount of light, and there actually is a thing called a lighting engineer, and they'll come out and measure the amount of light that you have to see if you meet that parameter. And then the other one would be deck lighting. If you have to add lighting to your swimming pool or your swimming pool deck to meet the requirements to have night swimming, the first step would be to hire an engineer, a lighting engineer, to come out and measure what you've got. And then you'll see you may have to add light poles or you may have to add lights in the swimming pool. Both of those are rather invasive because we have to get power to new locations, which means either pulling up pool deck or tunneling under it. It just depends on what works best. But then you would need to apply to the Florida Department of Health to upgrade your operating permit to include night swimming.
Okay, next question is, if the height of the
Sorry, I
gate
just want to jump in on that really quick. Something to consider if you are someone who is a condo on the beach, that you then also have to deal with the turtle lighting during that time of year as well. So there's all sorts of fun stuff that I'm sure John loves to deal with when it comes to that. You can still do it, just have to have, you know, certain shades and things on the lights that you would see from the ocean side so that it's not reflecting that way as well.
that could be a whole course.
It
It's a
could.
lot.
It could. And I have never taken a pool from no night swimming to night swimming. I have researched it a couple of times, and usually the financial barrier is where the plan trips up. But we can certainly help anybody that wants to try to do that with that. I've never seen a pool on the Atlantic side beach that had night swimming added
Yeah.
successfully due to what Lindsay just said, and that's the turtle police.
Right. And the whole thing with that too is to keep in mind, you know, you're only going to be able to really use the night swimming for the most part during the part of the year that's not turtle season. So when you look at the financial and then when you can actually use it, which is not the summer, which is when everyone wants to do night swimming, it doesn't make a whole lot of financial sense.
Along those lines, there's a next question, and again, forgive me if you've gone over it. We do not allow night swimming. Are in-pool lights required? We do have them, just questioning.
Without night swimming, I do not believe that you're required to have a light in the pool. Why you wouldn't, I have no idea. There's this industry of personal injury attorneys that even if your pool deck is closed, it's got a fence around it, the fence is locked. If somehow someone gets over that and ends up drowning in your pool, and it would be a real easy argument for the personal injury or wrongful death attorneys to say that pool should have been lit because it's a hazard and it's attractive nuisance, and a light would have prevented my client's child from falling in and drowning. I would absolutely not have a commercial pool that didn't have a light.
And I agree with that as well. And we have talked about that at some of my properties in the past. And if a child does fall in the water, you know, if that parent loses track of them and they do manage to get in, if there's a light on in the pool, someone else could see the child in the pool to be able to act quickly. Whereas if there's no light, you know, you may not see the child till it's too late. So he is definitely correct, John, in saying that. And I would agree with that. You know, some of the properties I've managed will have the light stay on until like 2 in the morning and then it automatically shuts off. You know, at that time you expect that there's not really going to be anyone out and about roaming, but I would definitely say that that you should at least have the light on until the wee hours of the morning for those reasons.
So
And
the building
also, if
department,
someone breaks in, then they can't sneak in the pool and be secretive because the light's on. So you can't get in the pool and mess around and, hide. And, no one knows we're in the pool because they're in the pool and you can see them.
so the health department's rationale behind no color lights in a pool that's available and permitted for night swimming is the visibility thing. And they actually carry that one step further. When we're refinishing the interior surface of a swimming pool, there's reflective qualities of interior finish material that have to be met for the pool to be accepted by the Florida Department of Health. And the manufacturers of the material have, there's what do I want to say? It's a gauge isn't the right word, but it's a reflective characteristic of the finish, of the color combination of finish that has to be met. And the manufacturers have a schedule that tells you what the reflective qualities, dry and wet, of each one of their finishes is. So there are a lot of finishes that we cannot use in commercial swimming pools because they don't meet that light reflective criteria, but you can use them in your residential pool.
There's a lot to all of this. Staying in the same space, what kind of gate lock system is required to prevent night swimming? And then second question was, if height of gate is 4 feet, how can the latch be 54 inches?
So that's a great question. But they make a special latch. And I'm sure if you think about it, you've probably seen them. You've got a fence that's 4 feet 4 inches or something like this. And then there's a stanchion that sticks up another 10 inches. It looks like a periscope sticking up above the edge of the fence. And that takes it to 54 inches. And there's a release that goes down to open that. What was the first part of that question, Diane, please?
A gate lock for night swimming. Is there some type of latch to prevent night swimming? I mean, I think that's an obvious, you people can jump over, but is there anything that you've seen?
So
The only thing you could do is if you have like the key card access or something, you'd have to have a system that would allow you to put a timer on it to where after a certain hour the gates won't the door won't open. I've seen this with like I don't know that I've necessarily seen it on a pool because it's outside and a little bit different, but like with a gym facility at a condominium or an apartment complex, they have it set to where your key fob won't work after a certain hour. That's the only way I could possibly think you could do it.
So
Yeah, Vivian, one of the participants popped in and said, if you have a fob system, you can change the schedule. So I love that.
the fob systems we see lots and lots of those going in on new commercial pools, but on some of these older pools that we do renovations on, typically they have a maintenance guy that comes around, puts a chain and a padlock on the gate. And the more important thing is from a not so much a safety perspective, but from protecting your condominium from a lawsuit perspective, is that the health department requires that there's pool rule signs. The pool rule signs are very specific in what they have to say. And one of them is when the pool opens and when it closes. And it also will, if it's a no night swimming pool, it's a no night swimming pool. And it says so on the pool rules sign.
Okay, they keep coming in. I love it. So all pool gates should be outward opening and self-closing, question mark.
Yes.
Can we place a door alarm as a deterrent for people trying to get in at night?
Yes.
I love it. Rapid fire. Do you have any control systems which show water chemistry levels, and registrate them and record instead to fill a daily log?
Yes. The CAT 4000.
Okay, and guys, everybody, please, I'm going to put the information to contact John after, because they are now a franchise throughout the state of Florida and the Southeast area. I'm sure that there's a location close to you. This is one that maybe your professional opinion and personal opinion, John, is one pool style better than another? Whichever one the board approves, right?
How do you want me to answer that from the perspective of a pool building company? Bigger's better.
Bigger's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the question before that? I had another comment to make and I lost it.
Give me 2 seconds because I delete as I go. Sorry, forgive me. It was
the alarm.
Yeah,
on the
control
gate.
system. No, the control systems would show the water chemistry and
Ah.
register and record.
Yeah. So the Cat 4000, I'm slanging the name just a little bit. I apologize. That's a Hayward product. It's manufactured by Hayward. Hayward's been around forever. They build all kinds of pool equipment, but the Hayward Cat 4000 is an ORP controller that records your water chemistry balance, eliminates the need for your certified pool operator to maintain a manual log, which those logs are a mess 90% of the time because they're kept in the pool house where the humidity is like 99.9%, and they're written on paper with ink, and an electronic file collected by a motherboard is a way more reliable way to manage that information.
I've got more questions for you, John. I love this. Thank you, everyone, for the engagement. How often does DOH do inspections?
How often are they supposed to, or how often do they?
Probably both.
Twice a year is my understanding, unless there's a complaint or a violation, and then they have to come out. Sometimes, so the DOH will do their inspection and they'll give you some comments. And typically unless it's something extremely critical, they don't close you down. They'll give you a warning. I've got one that actually we're going to address down in Coral Springs tomorrow. They've been notified for the last year, so several times, that their main drains are non-compliant, and we're going to go down and see what we can do about that for them. But the health department has not closed their pool yet, but they gave them the date that they're going to close it, which was the impetus to actually call a pool contractor called Oak Wells Aquatics and ask them to come fix it.
Pro and con with surveillance. I can't say that word.
Cameras.
Surveillance camera.
I would be all about that, if for no other reason than to defend yourself from litigation coming from slip and fall on your pool deck, someone running on your, whatever happens on your pool deck. If you've got a video record of it, it doesn't matter what it costs to put the cameras in. It's cheaper to have the record than not to have the record when there's a problem.
Agreed. Renee said, thank you so much for the class. It's been very informative. Thank you, Renee. Next one is, we had to install a retrofit for fob entry and exit for our pool, and it was not touch to exit, but it was fob exit, just like fob entry. When the power went out or the system was inoperable, there were issues. I would imagine an emergency touch exit would have been required. Your input.
So it's the fire marshal that would require you to have the emergency exit. And it's kind of tricky because you have to have fob entry, fob exit, and then an emergency exit that cannot be accessed from outside the pool deck, because that allows you to get in without your fob. So what we've seen a couple of in a few places, one is there's the fire brake bar that goes on the gate. And then the gate has had to have, this particular property used clear acrylic on top of their aluminum gate to prevent you from being able to reach around and access that. So you've got an emergency exit bar, crash bar that opens the gate. You have a fob that typically opens the gate and from the inside or the outside.
Next one is, there is a pool log with waterproof Hey, Gail Lee, thank you for recommending. You know what, not being in the industry, but working with clients in the industry. I think it's great that there's waterproof paper, but we're in 2025. Like, let's all get digital, right? Like that, just why we're doing these kinds of education programs so we can touch more people and have record and share it. You know, when you're talking to board members who constantly want to save money, it's like, let's be realistic about the liability and the coverage and the record keeping of the business, which is the association. And let's as CAMs and board members stop looking at everything as a dollar sign and look at it as a liability and a future record keeping. My own my own 2 cents. Take it as you will. Want to keep moving on. We're at an hour, but if everybody's good to go, we have a 10-minute window. If you want to stay on to finish, please do. If not, we will have this recorded. Should the company who does your pool service do your pool resurfacing, as they are the ones who manage the chemicals for the pool? John, good question.
That depends on their pedigree. When we resurface a swimming pool, residential or commercial, it doesn't matter. We take care of the water chemistry for the first 30 days. And the reason that we, as part of our bill or our scope of work, and it's included in the price, and we won't refinish your swimming pool if you don't let us take care of the water chemistry for that first 30 days. And the reason that we have that opinion is that most pool finishes, everything that we use is a cementitious product. So it's got a cement base, and cement products continue to cure their whole life, but they do 90% or so in the first 30 days. When you build a bridge and the DOT is watching, when you pour the concrete, you have to pour them some special little cylinders of the concrete that you've used and give it to them. And 28 days after you've poured it, they take it to a lab and crush it to be sure that it meets the compressive strength that's required. And I'm telling you that because that 28-day, we call it 30 days of after you put water in the swimming pool, is extremely critical to keep the water chemistry balanced properly. And we don't trust your guy to do it. So we do it. Because the phone call that I get if we don't do it is 2 weeks in, this finish went bad. Finish didn't go bad. Finish wasn't maintained properly. So if your pool, yes, to answer your question, yes, it makes sense if your pool service company has a license to do that kind of work, has some experience that you can prove and draw on, and the liability insurance to actually cover construction. Yes, it makes a lot of sense because they're the ones that are ultimately responsible for that.
Okay, real quick, class was extremely informative. Thank you. That's from Chip. Thank you, Chip. Gail Lee responded, wish our HOA's former pool service had taken this course. So good feedback. Thank you. What areas does Oak Wells service? Everybody, I put John's contact information, the website, and his email address in the chat. So, and the website. So go there. Click on locations tab and you can see, because there's multiple counties that they service that you're going to want to look, but certainly reach out to John. Over 30 years experience in the field. I personally work with him on the Callan Group side. They're amazing to work with. They have a team of experience that is just like so just critical in all these things. Thank you. Love your statement. Gail, I don't know what that was for, but thank you.
Diane, can I weigh in here for just a second?
Please.
So Oak Wells Aquatics mothership, which is situated here in Jacksonville, we work from South Georgia down to, well, my southernmost job at the moment is in Coral Springs, which is a 5-hour drive tomorrow. For renovations, heavy renovations, we do travel. The main shop doesn't go west of Orlando and doesn't go south of Melbourne typically, except for right on the East Coast. We do have franchisees in 3 counties in Southwest Florida, Collier. I don't know, the other 2 Southwest Florida. Let's put it that way. I don't know what the counties actually are. I know that one of them is Collier, and I think one of them
Charlotte and Lee.
Charlotte and Lee. Thank you so much. And we can we can take renovation and new construction work for residential or commercial pools down in that area.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to put in John's information one more time. And John, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so great. It's so great to see all the questions, especially since this course is the second time. So these are new people. And so thank you everyone for allowing us to go over just a little bit. Lindsay, do you want to go over the code and send the link to everyone because everyone's asking? And just so everybody knows, we videotape these, we send them out the newsletter after webinar Wednesday. We always send out the recordings, and we also have it on our website, which we constantly send in every newsletter because we encourage you to share these courses with your board of directors and fellow CAMs. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Lindsay, you want to go in there? You're on mute.